Hey guys, hope you are doing well. I apologize. It's been quite a while since I did a video and I am behind in answering comments. So I thought, well, maybe I'll combine these two and do a video by going through some of these comments and see if we can answer these hopefully pretty quickly. And so for those of you who do not know me, my name is John Watts. I'm a consumer protection lawyer and I'm glad you're here watching this video. If you like it, feel free to comment or like it and share it, and also feel free to subscribe, and definitely let me know if you have any questions or suggestions and we'll try to answer those. So let's look here. Ernie's got a question. How can I dispute to a credit company reporting a charge-off but another credit company removing the same charge-off? Now, I'm assuming when Ernie's talking about a credit company, we're talking about like Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. So maybe I have a Capital One charge-off and I've disputed it and TransUnion keeps it, but Experian deletes it. How is that possible? Well, there's a couple of possibilities. One is that Capital One may have told the two credit bureaus, and Equifax either keeps it or doesn't keep it, whatever they do. They could have told sort of different stories to each one. Or it could be that your dispute may be, Equifax gets your dispute, they pass it on to Capital One. Capital One says keep it. But TransUnion or Experian, they get it and they don't even pass it along to Capital One. They just delete it. So it can be helpful to have it deleted. And so you may want to dispute again and point out to whichever company is still keeping it, hey, the other guy took it off. Here's a copy of the results of investigation saying it's been deleted. Why aren't you deleting this? They're not required to, but that can be helpful to them. All right, let's see here. Jordan says, if someone went into collections weeks before July 1, 2022, will they still get the 1 year before it gets reported to credit report? So this is on, and hopefully you can see this here. This is on a video I did about some changes coming to medical debt collection. And so the idea is that nothing will go on before at least a year has gone by. And so to answer your question specifically, Jordan, I'm not sure, if this is, if it goes on a week before July 1st, 2022, exactly how that will play out. We just right now have a little kind of press release from the bureaus, but there's a lot of details. And some people argue about, like, for example, it says paid medical collection will be deleted. Okay, well, what does paid mean? I take paid to mean, if they say, oh, $500, whether I pay them $500 or $50 or $5 or 5 cents, if they accept it and they say, we're done, I consider that to be paid. Now, some people say, no, that would be, settled for less than full amount, and that is not considered paid. So there's a whole bunch of details we just don't know. But I think as we get closer, we will get a lot more insight. And CDIA, which is the sort of the industry company that puts out what you may be familiar with as the Metro 2 guide, they will certainly put a lot of details out and give us some information, at least about what the industry is saying that they're willing to do. So see, Evie says, we paid Fingerhut in full after it went to collection, and then Fingerhut put it back on there as a bad debt and unpaid and refused to take it off. Does FCRA apply here? It certainly can. You want to dispute that through the credit bureau. So let me make sure I understand this question. So you paid Fingerhut. I guess my first question is, did you pay them directly or did you pay through a collector? Now, in a sense, it doesn't matter, because if you paid them, then there's nothing more that's owed. Okay, but sometimes that can help us understand what's happened here. And then Fingerhut put it back on your credit report as unpaid. Well, if it's been paid, and let's say it's $500 and you paid them $300, and Fingerhut has put it back on your credit report either as owing $500 or owing $200, the $500 minus the $3 that you paid, now they say you owe $200, that would all be wrong. If you settled it where you owed nothing on it, then it would not be accurate, would not be complete for them to say that it is unpaid. And so what I would do, you say they refuse to take it off. Sounds like maybe you reach out directly to Fingerhut, which makes sense. But unfortunately for the Fair Credit Reporting Act, we need to go directly to the bureaus. So Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, maybe Innovis if they're on there, and dispute it and show the credit bureaus, because whatever we show them, they are supposed to pass it along to Fingerhut. So, hey, here's the settlement letter from Fingerhut or from the collector. Here's my check that I sent them. Here's where they wrote me back and said, hey, you've completely paid off this account. Thank you very much. Whatever information you can give them would be very, very helpful. And if after you send in that dispute, if it's not removed, then you very well may have an FCRA case, a Fair Credit Reporting Act case, against potentially the bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, maybe Innovis, but definitely Fingerhut, if Fingerhut is reporting this false information and they've had a chance to fix it by you disputing through the credit bureaus. All right, let's see here. We've got landed, which I'll be honest, I don't know what that means, but thank you for that. Let's see. Kay Young says, thanks so much. Refiling dispute letters for disputes I originally filed over the phone. This really helps. That's good. So, and I'll tell you this, it's something that we have not used a whole lot of, but we're starting to, and that is we're recommending to our clients to contact the credit bureaus by phone. Now, usually here's the sequence we go in. Have them dispute it, they get their results back, and then they may call and say, hey, why didn't you fix it? Why didn't you delete it? And that will be considered a dispute. And then usually that does not take the full 30 days, and then they'll mail you the results, or they may put it inside your portal if you have like a transunion.com, Experian.com, myequifax.com account. And so certainly nothing wrong with doing it over the phone. I obviously can't tell you what to do. You're not my client. I can't give you advice, but I'll tell you that, for my clients, if when they call that the credit bureaus say, please be advised, all calls may be recorded, well, then they record those calls. And that can be very helpful, because sometimes those representatives will be extremely honest, okay, when the credit bureaus don't want them to be. They'll say, look, we don't do any investigation. We just send this off to Capital One or Midland Funding or Fingerhut or whoever it may be, and we just do whatever they tell us. Well, we all know that's true, okay, but they're not supposed to say that out loud. But you have that on recording. That's very, very valuable. So I certainly think it's a good idea to at least consider doing phone disputes. It's not necessary. I mean, one dispute, whether it's by phone, online, by letter, that's all you have to have, but that second dispute by phone can add sort of a personal touch to it. So I think it's an interesting strategy to use. Let's see, Brandon asked a question here. Should we include our report with circle corrections in our dispute letter to the bureaus, or just describe what is wrong and right? It's a fantastic question, Brandon. Really, really good. Here's my answer. I would do both. Okay, so in your letter itself, I would describe what's wrong. Hey, you're missing the data for these months. You say, here's the date of my last payment and the amount is $0, when really it's $200. Here's the proof, whatever it may be, okay? So I think describe it in words, but then you may want to pull out those pages of the credit reports and include them with your dispute letter. Then you may want to circle stuff, highlight stuff. You can do this physically. You can print it out and, use a pen, highlighter, or you can pull it up in Adobe or whatever your PDF reader is. And usually on those you can highlight, you can circle. You may have like an iPad or a tablet of some type that comes with a little pen, or just use your finger, circle stuff, like draw lines. And so what you're doing there is you're telling them and you're showing them. Now, our written letter should be, very descriptive. Okay, it should not be vague at all. Okay, so that should paint a picture. But then if we can literally give them a picture, that's wonderful. Now, what some people do is they will sort of rip out part of the report and drop it into like the body of the letter. But again, you may want to circle stuff, draw arrows, highlight things, just to call attention to what you're doing. So I think, fantastic question, Brandon. See, Blazer says, this is on a video, what is a refusal to pay letter? Are you telling me I can rack up huge debt with someone, send them a refusal to pay letter, and be completely off the hook? That sounds sketchy. Yeah, it does sound sketchy. And no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that with a debt collector, you have the right under federal law, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, to say to the collector, and these are the same things, just two different ways of saying it. You can say, I want you to cease all communications with me. And then they have to stop communicating with you. It does not make the debt go away. They can sue you. They can still have it on your credit report. They just can't call you or write you. Okay? Or you can say, I refuse to pay this. Same thing. Now, that has to be in writing, and we won't get into details of email and all that stuff. But just understand, a refusal to pay or cease communication, all that does is that tells the collector, hey, I cannot continue to communicate with this consumer, but I can sue them if I have the legal right to sue them. I can put it on the credit report if I have the legal right to credit report. So it does not make the debt go away. It just means they stop blowing up your phone, okay? And so that's been the law since 1977 with the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. So this is not some novel concept or anything like that. If you want to look it up yourself, just go to 15 USC. USC stands for United States Code. 15 USC, it'd be section 1692 C, and then there'll be like, A, B, C. So C again. So it's 1692 CC. And that will be the cease communications or the refuse to pay section. If my memory's right, I'm pretty sure that's the right section. And so check that out. You can see what it says. And again, it does not make the debt go away, but it means the collector has to leave you alone. Now, they can send it back to the creditor. They can send it to another collector. They can forward it to another collector themselves sometimes. And so, again, you may still have to deal with collectors. You just won't have to deal with this particular collector writing you or calling you. All right, let's see. Miss D's talking about a Seventh Circuit case. And by the way, I've got quite a few more cases I'm going to release some videos on where we go through and see exactly what the court is saying. And I thought, even though this is a little outside of what we do, I thought I would go through a lot of the recent Supreme Court decisions, U.S. Supreme Court decisions, because it's interesting, I think, to know how they think, how they apply the law. And certainly that affects us in consumer law, but then what the Supreme Court does affects really our lives in a lot of ways, and it's good to know how they come to their decisions. Okay, so Ms. D said, missed a lot of steps, was on the right path by challenging, did not do it right. Yeah, I'll say this, when you read court opinions, I have been involved in cases where I read the opinion and I go, that's not the facts. There are some really important things that have been left out here. So sometimes it's frustrating when you're in a case and you know all the facts, and then the court accidentally leaves things out. Okay, so I don't know exactly what happened. I know from reading the court opinion, it sounds like there were some mistakes made by the consumer. May not have been. Also, the Seventh Circuit is just, how can I say it? They are a very challenging place for consumer cases. And I think that would have a different result in most other places. Anyway, that is sorry, I had my phone. I thought it was on silent there. So just a tough place, but that's, part of the deal is you got to know where you're fighting your battles and what the court says, because every circuit, so that's what's called the Seventh Circuit. I'm in the 11th Circuit, which is Alabama, Georgia, Florida. All these different circuits sometimes have slightly different little tweaks to how they apply things, so you have to be careful about that. Let's see, Benny says sarcasm is golden. So that's a video from forever ago. I have no idea what I said in that, but I have been accused occasionally of being sarcastic, so probably was. Laquanda says they're ACVD. I think may mean ACDV, AUD, frozen scans, carbon copies, all different. Yeah, there's a lot of different terminology when we're talking about credit reports. And so people will throw out these things like eOscar and ACDVs and AUDs and all this stuff. And that's helpful. And I think I have a video where I go through sort of what eOscar is, what the automated dispute verification system is, and how that works. But for our purposes, when we understand what the law requires, that if we dispute to a credit bureau anything that's inaccurate or incomplete, and also that can't be verified, and then that credit bureau has to either delete the item or fix it, and usually to do that, they have to send that to the furnisher, the company that provided or furnished the information. And then that company has to investigate. So the furnisher has to investigate and the credit bureau has to investigate. And when they do that correctly, then your credit report will be accurate and complete. When they don't do it correctly, it's very likely that either the credit bureau or the furnisher or both, that there was some negligence involved, and you may be able to pursue a lawsuit there. All right, see, Neri asked on arbitration video, talking about being sued by a debt collector. Can you help me with filing this? So if you're in Alabama or Tennessee, we can certainly talk to you about that. If you're in another state, you need a lawyer that's licensed in your state. But the basic concept of this is if you want to compel arbitration, and that can be great, it can be a terrible decision. You really have to know for your particular case what the best thing to do is. You basically very quickly, as soon as you get in the case, preferably, because if you wait too long, you can be what's considered to have waived your right to arbitration. But you want to let the court know that you are demanding arbitration. Let the other side know, hey, I'm demanding arbitration. I want you, the plaintiff, the one who filed the lawsuit, to go file an arbitration claim. Now, sometimes they try to flip that on you and say, no, you have to file it. And I'll say this, sometimes it's to your advantage. You may have a choice in where to go, and if they're going to sort of make you, they can't, but they may try and bluff you and say, well, you have to go file this. Well, pick the best place for you. It may be worth paying that $150 or $200 to do that. So this is called a motion to compel arbitration, which you file in court. And again, that's going to vary kind of by state there. See, Dia says, great work on frustration. So thank you for that. And tell you what, we'll go a few more of these and then we'll wrap this up here. And let me know if you find these helpful, just kind of like taking all these comments here in one shot. So Sumter says, what if the debt collector sends you a purchase agreement from the original creditor and a couple of statements along with your court summons, but the current debt collector name is not on any of those pages or paper? Well, so here's a way to think about it. This concept is sometimes called the chain of title. So you start with the original creditor, and then you've got the company that sued you. Let's say this is LVNV Funding. Well, do we have a purchase agreement from the original creditor to LVNV Funding? Almost certainly no. Okay, now some companies do, but not LVNV Funding. It will go maybe to a bunch of companies, but definitely will go to something called like Sherman Acquisitions, Roman numeral 1 or 2 or 3. Then may go to another one. And then it may go to Resurgent, and then it may go to LVNV. And so what you want to be able to see is, all right, well, where is that total chain of title? Where are the purchase agreements for each step of the way? Now, what they'll say is, oh, well, once it went to Sherman Acquisitions, then it went to Resurgent, then LVNV. We don't have any paperwork with that. Really? These are separate corporations and we don't have any paperwork? We're transferring hundreds of millions of dollars of debt and we don't have any paperwork? That's very odd, right? And so, kind of the truth of the matter is like, well, yeah, I mean, there's paperwork, but we don't want you to see any of it. Okay, well, that's a different matter. Maybe I'm entitled to see it. Maybe I'm not. But, that is, to go back to your question, I would ask, we've got the original creditor, it goes to debt collector 1. How did it get to debt collector 2? Debt collector 1 must have sold it to debt collector 2, or maybe to somebody in between, and maybe this is debt collector 3. Where are those purchase agreements? Where are those witnesses? And so hopefully that is of some help to you. All right, let's see. Meandering Missionary says, do you think if I never put it with my bank or any credit reporting agency, I'm a disabled veteran, it's legal for them to put on my credit report I'm such? Isn't that a HIPAA violation? I don't think it would be a HIPAA violation, and I don't think you can sue for that. But I'll say this. I mean, there's a lot of things on our credit report that we may not have ever told anybody. But if the credit bureaus find out, they may be allowed to report that. I may say, well, I've got a cell phone nobody has a phone number to. Well, if the credit bureaus get it, they can put that on my credit report. Now, I can dispute it and say, hey, I want that off. And, I may can make them take that off, or I may not. So if you don't want that status of disabled veteran, you might dispute that with the credit bureaus and see if they take it off. I would just explain why you want that off. This is because of privacy, or maybe there's some issue, or you're facing discrimination when you are applying for a loan. When they see that, like whatever the reason is, I would give that to the credit bureaus. But just from a standpoint of, remember, stuff with the credit bureau has to be accurate and complete. Well, if we are a disabled veteran, then it's accurate. Is that complete? It may be complete. So I don't know that you could ever sue for that, but you may be able to explain to the credit bureaus why this is a problem and have them take that off. See, crypto videos are wonderful public service. Thank you so much. Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for the kind comments. Let's see. What if you're mentally incompetent, such as legally disabled by SSA, so Social Security Administration, receive SSDI? So this is in the context of being sued by LVNV. So typically, legally disabled is going to be different than mentally incompetent. And let me say it this way. I can be disabled because of a back injury or a disease or something like that and still be very mentally sharp. And so I can be disabled without being mentally incompetent. Or I could be mentally incompetent. That could be, I was born that way. It could be a stroke. It could be a head injury. Now, SSDI, that's where we've paid money into the system. So this would probably not be something that we were born with, but maybe an injury or a disease that's affected our mind. And that may qualify as being disabled and being incompetent. I don't do Social Security. I know at least the VA does this. If they deem you to be mentally incompetent, they appoint somebody to sort of receive the money for you. I forget. Maybe they call them a fiduciary or something. So I would just wonder if you have sort of that designation. But as far as being sued, if somebody is incompetent, typically they can let the court know, hey, this person's mentally incompetent, and the case may be dismissed, or there may be somebody appointed to kind of stand in the place of that person who's been sued. Not necessarily a lawyer, but just somebody to stand in their place. So I would just find out, if you're talking about a lawsuit, for example, filed by a debt collector like LVNV, I would just see, okay, the person sued, has any court or any government agency declared them to be mentally incompetent? And can you share that information with the collection lawyer, because they may back off? Usually what they do is dismiss the case without prejudice. I know I've said this 100 times before, but I think it's important because there's a lot of confusion about it. When we say prejudice, normally that's a bad thing, right? Prejudice. Here, prejudice has nothing to do with, race or anything like that. It has to do with, can they sue you again? So without prejudice, yes, they can sue you again. With prejudice, they cannot sue you again. So typically, if a debt collector, collection lawyer, law firm sees that somebody is, mentally incompetent, or, if they're 87 years old with terminal cancer, say, hey, you know what, we'll dismiss it without prejudice. That way they could sue again if they needed to, but at least the guys that I deal with, by and large, would not be trying to get a judgment against somebody who's mentally incompetent. So hopefully that helps. And let's see. Somebody said they missed the Legalese show. You still, can catch the replays, and we try to do those on the second and fourth Thursdays at 4 o'clock Central Time. And I tell you what, we'll stop it there. And with Crispy Brown, thanks everyone. So I appreciate your comment. And you guys just let me know what you're looking for. What I have planned is to try to do at least one live per week, and probably interviewing another consumer lawyer. So lawyers in other states and some in Alabama that just have different sort of areas of expertise. And those may be live where you can put in questions, or it may just be sort of a two-way conversation between me and the lawyer, and then I'll post it. I'll try to do some sort of solo lives where it can definitely answer your questions. And then I do have a lot of court opinions that I want to go through. I think it's good to talk about what the law says, but I think it can really be helpful if you're interested in the law to see not just what I say about it, but what does the court actually write in their opinions. And so it's not just me talking about it, but me showing you, and I'll have stuff highlighted and circled and, crazy scribble marks on it. So hopefully those will be helpful, and you guys have a great rest of your day or night or whenever you happen to be watching this, and I will talk to you later. Okay, bye-bye.